Good evening and salutations, our soap opera fans. So, this guy right here needs no introductions. We have been doing collabs for a good while now. He is one of my good friends, not just somebody I do collabs with. Welcome, DC Soap Sanctuary, back to the channel. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I apologize to making you wait. I was getting out of Tai Chi, so that's why it was like.
You still doing the yoga and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I do yoga on Saturdays and Tai Chi on Wednesday nights. But this was like my introductory into it, and we got out early on time. So I was like, all right, perfect. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Nice. What's good evening? What's good everyone in the chat? Thank you for joining us. Wow, it's amazing. This whole YouTube experience, it's just one of those things where it's like I'm enjoying the ride. Yeah. And it always feels very surreal, like just getting on here, being comfortable and just talking, and it's something that I still think about every day when I wake up. It's just like this is my life.
You're a paid YouTuber.
I know, yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, not even just to pay. I mean, yeah, granted the pay YouTube part, but like this is my life, just talking and it's just having followers and stuff like that. Cause I never really, I don't sit there and say the word fans. Cause I don't like that word. It feels like I'm above someone or people. I don't like that. So I like to sit there and say that to all my friends, we'll have a good time, and I'm just loving it every minute of the day. What's good, Mel? What's good, everyone? Thank you for joining. What about you, DC?
Honestly, like I said, it definitely has been amazing ride being a YouTuber. I mean, just being able to share the love of what you do on here, and I love our niche doing soaps. It's very nice and contained for the rest of YouTube. I feel like, if I have to boast it back, it's just very different, the rest of the YouTube universe. But I love it. I love the love. I love when I do surveys and polls, and I'm just getting everyone's reactions. I love being able to come on here. And just, and of course, seeing your growth as well as a YouTuber. That's why I call it Boxic Enterprises. Right now, like,
yes.
With your members only, it's given like ELQ on the stock market, That's what it's given these days. That's what it's given. I love it. I absolutely love it.
So, because I know DC, we were sitting there talking a hot minute before, and DC didn't see the episode today. Unfortunately, we're kind of going to get into a little bit of it. I'm not going to spoil too much.
It's GH.
I mean, it's also just because of the title. Now, you did watch the whole Curtis and Portia scene, right? What are your thoughts on that?
It was giving Teresa Lopez Fitzgerald vibes, which is funny because Brooke Kerr, who plays Portia on GH, she was the best friend of Teresa Lopez Fitzgerald on Passions, when she played Whitney Russell Crane on Passions. For me, I loved it. GH was like good. It was reminding me of like that classic soap feel, that classic build up to the release. The scenes between Trina and Portia could have used a little work. Could have used some work. In my opinion, could have used some work. That's all I'm gonna say on that, because I don't want Sabrina Nation to come on me at a raid. But it was actually really good. I thought the storyline was really good. Personally, though, I don't see what Portia did exactly. I'm just like, because she said she doesn't know, she wasn't sure. I don't understand. I see your face already. I'm like, did she really do something wrong? She said she didn't know. But anyways, it was a good scene. I thought there was really, really good scenes between them. I was like, finally, GH is finally giving us something. Besides the whole Anna and Valentine, I don't know where they are. I don't care. They can just stay where they are. That storyline. But it was actually pretty good. How did you feel about it?
So just on a side note, so let me just get this straight. So you're not okay with pissing off Sabrina Nation, but I guess you're okay with pissing off what do you call them? Vanna. You're cool with upsetting Vanna?
I'm okay with that. I feel like Vanna, because Vanna can handle it. Vanna can handle it, but Sabrina Nation is like messing with one of the 5 families of GH.
Okay, all right. because I talked about this before and I talked about it ad nauseum. But so you're saying that you don't see, okay, so with the Curtis and Portia scene, you don't see anything wrong with what she did?
You know what I would remind you of, guys, who just asked that question? He reminds you of like a prosecutor in court that's like, say the question so subtly, waiting to give your answer, and then just gonna go boom in for the kill. That's what he reminds me of. He reminds me of a prosecutor in court. Okay,
I
here's the
didn't
thing.
even think of that. I didn't even think of that.
Okay, here's the deal. The Portia, where she went wrong is when she had her suspicions, she should have just told Curtis. And I think her and Taggert and Curtis could have came up with a plan to maybe keep it between the three of them. But that's where she messed up at, because she honestly did not know. And that's where she messed up. And it's like she's in the process of knowing. Because even when Curtis says, "Is she my daughter?" She's like, "I honestly don't know." She doesn't know. Sis doesn't. She was trying to find out. Portia could have spun this. If I was her, not saying I've ever done this or I'm a professional liar, but Portia could have spun this the right way. She was smart. She could have said, "I was getting ready to find out, and I was getting ready to tell you. That's why I had a DNA test done, and George didn't understand, so I had my doubts." She could have spun this the right way if she was smart enough. Because technically, she doesn't know. She has plausible deniability. She could have spun this the right way. I see Albert's face, but she could have spun this the right way. Go ahead for the kill, prosecutor.
No, I mean,
Arden over here,
well,
giving Arden.
it's one of those things where it's like, so she had an affair, right? She had an affair with Curtis, and then Curtis found out she was married, so Curtis was like, "I, listen, I'm out." And Taggart decided he wanted to sit there and really step up and be a good husband. You had a child, not even just as a doctor, just as a woman. You would sit there and be like, "Man, wasn't it kind of crazy if it was that other guy's child and not Taggart's child?" I want to sit there and work on my marriage. I'm just going to sit there and keep this quiet for 19 years. Really? I mean, on Taggart's side alone, you had this man raise a child that might not even have been his for 19 something years. I mean, and unfortunately, I kind of got to get into today's episode, but it's like, he was like, "You didn't have faith in me that, you know, that child might have been mine. Like I wouldn't have loved her any different." Like
Well,
that's just messed up in itself. But let's just sit there and say, okay, internet wasn't really a prevalent thing, and this dude walked out on her, right? Okay, fine, whatever. But at some point, in the last 2 years that they've been living together, you want to sit there and be like, "Hey, there's a possibility that it could be your child or anything like that." She literally said that I wouldn't have told you. I would have literally kept this to, I would have took this to my grave because it was about protecting her. So yeah, I kind of have issues with that.
so let me play devil's advocate and give a little bit of Scott Baldwin up here, a little bit of attorney Scott Baldwin. This is my thing. I could understand where Portia was coming from. I'm not saying what she did was right, but I think that when you've been married to someone and your whole life is around that relationship, and yes, you could go tell. And granted, yes, okay, I didn't watch the episode, but based on what you said, Taggart has a point. But at the same time, you don't really know until you're in that situation. And she didn't know for sure. I mean, he was already distant for work. And imagine like this will give him more of an opportunity, more distant. So I could see why she would feel like she wouldn't want to tell Taggart that. But also at the same time, I look at it this way too, is that with Portia, when you're in a relationship with someone and that's all you know, you're scared of blowing that up in that moment, right? You're scared of blowing that up. And now, even as Trina got older, she had her doubts. Now it's like she's scared of blowing up the relationship with her daughter. But that doesn't make it right. But she was always scared of blowing something up. Like, I'm nervous about this. And even when she had Curtis, that was an opportunity to. Now, this part is where she gets a little stupid. I'll give it that part with not telling Curtis and saying your doubts, because you and Taggart are over at this point. At least tell Curtis. At least you don't give a damn about Taggart. You moved on. He's doing his thing. You don't even care anymore. At least tell Curtis and then figure out what you guys want to do with Trina, and then he can be there, back you up. Taggart acts crazy on you or something. You know what I mean? Like that could have been a solution there. But I could see that because when you're in a relationship with someone, you don't know what they're gonna do until you're under those circumstances. So I could get why she decided to keep the secret. But her saying that, to Curtis, well, I would have kept that. I think she mentioned something similar to Curtis. Well, I would have kept that to myself the whole time or whatever. was a little bit dumb. Like, sis, you can spin this the right way. I wish I was there, like as a PR or something, and like, let's talk. So I can tell you how to spin this thing. Maybe she has to hire Stephanie Johnson, SJPR from Days, to help her will get her statements right. That's what I would say on that.
That's I'm not gonna. Here's the thing, and that's one of the many reasons why I love Cynthia. And what's good on Polka Dots. It's one of the many reasons why I love doing these collabs with you, because when you look at it, I'm coming at it from a very logical point, right? And you're coming at it from a very emotional point as far as how she would, how he would react. As far as being in a relationship, you don't know how they're going to sit there and handle this. So I can see your point of it. And what I'm saying, like, it's just one of those things where it's just like, even looking at that whole, from what you said and from what I said, is very interesting how we're both looking at the same show and we're coming at it from two different avenues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what I will sit there and say with Curtis is that I felt that his reaction was very, it was very low on testosterone. Like, I expected him to be a lot more angrier, a lot more hurt, something, on an emotional level. But he was very, he was very.
He didn't know. She doesn't. She still doesn't even know who was the father of Trina. She still doesn't know. So could he really be that angry though?
Yeah. If you missed out on 19 years of possibly your daughter's life, yeah, I can see emotions running kind of high. And again, not to kind of spoil it, but there was one point. The reason why I put up the title was that I felt like Taggert didn't, like, he had a very similar reaction. And Portia was like, "Why aren't you more angry? Why aren't you yelling at me or anything like that?" And he said something along the lines of growth and change. But I was like, bro, like, you're not even going to sit there and be a little more angry. I felt, and part of me felt like, maybe if this was the 90s, I can see them yelling and anger and stuff like that. Maybe because the times changed. And
yeah, we didn't get none of that with this. We didn't get
I felt, yeah, exactly. I felt like maybe because, I don't know, maybe it would just look bad, like as far as a man yelling at a woman or whatever, something. I don't know, but I felt like there was a reason why he wasn't as angry as he should have been, and it was just disappointing to me.
Even Trina's reaction it didn't hit the high notes for me. I wanted to see that 90s reaction, like, because it was building. You guys have been building this up for almost like what, a year, 2 years, and this is what we get. So grade wise, I'm gonna give you a C plus, because you guys have managed to execute it, but there's some points. I agree with you. There were so many points that they didn't really hit. Right. So it's like after a year or two of build, and GH is now doing this year or two of build up of storylines, which is fine. That's a classic soap model. I'm cool with that. But you better bring it when it's that dead execution. You better bring it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Philip Spalding finding out that he's not Alan Spalding's son, but you need to bring it. Like, for example, on Passions, when Teresa was marrying Ethan, and she never told him that little Ethan was his son. This is literally the same thing we're seeing on GH right now. How are you going to marry somebody and you have their child? You don't think they're going to connect the dots over time? Like, let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Let's talk about it. So it was very lackluster. Even when Trina was like, I can't even talk to you right now. Trina's reactions was not doing it for me. I was like, this is really not doing it for me. Like, I was like, this is it? After a year and a half? No, how could you? Like, nothing?
Exactly. A passion. Exactly what you're talking about. It was literally missing passion. With you know what I'm saying? To find out that your mom sat there and lied to you for years and years and years. And it was very low key. It was like you expected much more anger and yelling and screaming or something, not just, it's very bland talk. And I get that sometimes, like, they have to sit there and do it in a way where it's like we could follow it. It's not just a bunch of yelling and screaming and crying and you can barely understand what someone's saying. But they could have hit a note where it's like, okay, this is exactly what I expected. And it was there, and it should have been a lot higher than that.
I
So yeah,
mean, I mean, honestly, the paternity reveals on GH have been hella lackluster. Just in overall, I mean, the Heather Weber and Ryan Chamberlain, that was pretty lackluster. I feel like that should have been big, but it was lackluster. The last time I think, in my opinion, GH did an amazing paternity reveal was a good old goodbye detective as Sonny took out his gun and and had a little opera music, da 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 da, and then Olivia comes in. No, you know they do the slow motion. No, you just shot your own son. Like that. That was a reveal. That's what you call a reveal. You know, and I remember when Sonny had the gun on Dante, he's like, "Yeah, Sonny," and Dante's like this. Okay, go ahead. You want to shoot me? You cockeyed bastard. Go ahead. Is this the man you want your kids to be proud of? And then he goes, "Goodbye, detective." You know, that was a reveal right there. That was a reveal. This, I don't know what this is. I don't know.
yeah. No. You're right. It's definitely lackluster.
I don't know what that was.
No, it is. Now going into the whole Ryan and Esme and Heather. What do you think of their story so far?
Okay. And I hate going into actors and actresses. I try never to go there, but
We
I
got to.
liked her as Pam on B&B. And all I see Pam on B&B. I don't see Heather Weber. And this is something I've been struggling with this whole time watching this. And I try to give recast a chance. I try to just, pretend and close my eyes and just, make believe. But I still see Pam on B&B because this is exactly how Pam on B&B acted. Literally, when she was chasing Donna with the dog and the honey and all this other stuff and keeping Donna tied up in the cab. This is Pam. I don't see Heather Weber in this role. I don't see who because I actually played Heather Weber. She's, I think, the third Heather Weber, the one before. She was the third Heather Weber. But she's been playing it for the longest. And I understand you have to make the role your own, but I want to see those remnants of the old Heather. Because the old Heather she was very subtle. She was a subtle kind of crazy. She wasn't a wacky crazy. And this is more of a wackier, crazy, cartoonish version of Heather. And I don't know if I can really gel with it. This storyline with Ryan Chamberlain and Esme and Heather, it's been decent. I thought it was stupid when Ryan's like, I got to stop to make. And I'm like, so you guys on the run, you feel the need to just casually make a stop at Cast9 Island? Like, you're on the run. Like, just keep it moving, bro. Like, come on, just keep it moving at this point, please. And then my problem was Austin got in the hall walking into Cast9 Island like he pays a mortgage there every month on time. That was my problem. Like, he just walks on in like, when did you pay the mortgage? Like, when did Atlantic Cast9 put you on the mortgage for Cast9 Island? For Spoon Island? When did that happen? When did she put you on the mortgage? Austin, let me know. He just walked on in. And it's just like the writers, oh God, it's just so much of the storyline, but there's just so much with it. It's just like it's just so much to unpack with this. I do believe the end result will be Kevin and Laura being the guardians of that baby. That's what I think will be the end result, because Kevin is technically the baby's grand uncle, and Laura would be the baby's great grandmother or grandmother. Either way,
Yeah.
he's some grandmother to that baby. But yeah, and then Austin got in the hall, and when Ava was like, "Yeah, we got to go back and save Austin," I was like, "Oh yeah, Austin was shot. Oh yeah, he was shot." Like, Austin is like so randomly inserted into the storyline. It just feels so random with Austin. But anyways, I'm not gonna go on a tangent here. I'm gonna let you go ahead and dive on
Well,
it.
I mean, for me, I mean, because I'm looking at Ryan, I'm looking at Heather, and I see a lot of Harley Quinn and Joker vibes. And I think that's the reason why I've been on board with it for the most part. It's like it's been very comedic. Um, so I can get behind it in a lot of ways. Yeah, I thought it was very stupid that, well, in some ways I thought it was stupid, but Ryan does have an obsession with Ava, you know? And I can see him being stupid enough to risk his freedom, to sit there and try to pick up Ava and stuff like that. I, my whole thing with the hook killer thing is that I've enjoyed it. I know a lot of people haven't, and it's gotten to a point where people still believe
You
that
enjoyed it.
there's another hook killer. Hmm?
You enjoyed it.
For the most part, I
Let's
did.
talk about that.
I mean, I've enjoyed it for the most part, and I do say that because you had a whole week where he wasn't or she wasn't doing anything, and I think that they dragged it out too long. Yeah, there's definitely surface problems with it.
With a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think
Because
for the most part, I've enjoyed it. I don't think it was perfect. No, but you know, for what they gave us, I thought it was decent at the very least because it did give you like, all right, maybe this person may die, maybe that person may die. I mean, they killed off Brando, which let's be honest, the dude became useless after a while. They killed off Cabrera, which again he was useless. So the hook killer kind of serves some purposes. Yes, hit the like button. Thank you, Grams TV. If you are enjoying the stream, it really does help. We get new people in all the time, and like it's not just a YouTuber thing. I'm saying it's legit. Actually, get some people in there. But yeah, I've been enjoying it for a little bit.
guys, I think that Albert needs to book an appointment with Dr. Kevin Collins fact that he believes that this was a decent storyline. I'm very questioning that, or I would say Marlena, but she's in limbo right now, in between the afterlife and in between. So I'm gonna go with Dr. Kevin Collins right now for Albert. Because here's my thing: we've seen good storylines. We've seen the Bay City Stalker Another World. We've seen this. Well, the Satin Slayer was another terrible one that goes right next to the hook. I'm sorry, Satin Slayer was another terrible one. But we had the Music Box Film Like to Live. We had a Text Message Killer on GH, which that will go down in history as one of the last best. The Necktie Killer on Days, that was another good one, and that was recent. Oh God, Wine R&B, they don't do serial killer storylines. That's not the international audience is not feeling that, so we don't get none of that from them. But to me, even when Heather when they came into Castle Island, because I'm at that part of GH where they came to Castle Island, Heather was like, "Oh, he's not dead. I didn't put Venom on that hook." It was just so casual. I'm like, you built this up for 6 months just for like, there wasn't that like, here's the thing. Every serial killer storyline, there has a time when it's revealed that the serial killer is, we get like a little soliloquy, like a monologue as to why they did it. I did it because of this, and you guys just wouldn't stop. Like, we didn't get none of that from Heather. We didn't get that little monologue as to why we know why, but that's usually something we've always seen every time we saw a serial killer on a soap, like for Diego Alcazar, when it was him and Sam, he did get a little monologue. Yeah, and what you guys did to my dad, and I got that text message from him, and I realized all the victims, I was gonna send a text message. Like we got that. We didn't get that from this. I didn't get that from Heather Weber, and I was like, this is just so sad. I was like, wow, like, and it's like, the thing is like when Heather when Laura came into Castle Island, Spoon Island, Heather was just so casual. Like, to me, it didn't give off like serial killer reveal. They didn't do all the dramatic music when it was revealed to Heather. It was just like, yeah, it's me, and then just cut to commercial break. That's all we got.
Yeah, no. I mean, I definitely want to put it up there with any of the greats. I would sit there and say it served a couple of purposes. Um, I don't know. My whole thing is like I didn't watch Necktie Killer and stuff like that on Days or the Text Message Killer on
GH.
Yeah, I didn't. I missed that part.
So you don't even know what a good serial killer storyline looks like. Wow. You don't know what
Pretty much.
like.
So yeah.
This is why this was decent for you, because it's the only one you see. Let's pray for him, guys. Let's pray.
Yeah, no. I mean, like I said, I think it served a couple of purposes. Yes, it definitely could have been a lot better. That is 100%
I'm not
agree.
even mad at you anymore, Albert, because it's like you don't know any better. That's all. This is the only serial killer storyline you see, so you don't even know any better. Wow, it makes sense now. It makes a lot of sense.
Now, as far as the rest of this show is going, and I think that was probably some of the highlight stuff. Now, of course, you got the whole Willow stuff, and you got what's her name, Olbrich. Like now, she's going to decide she wants to test to see if she's a match. Whereas, like, you knew that you were the aunt for like a hot minute, and you could have tested at any point in time. And now that she's nearly at death's door, I think I'm gonna get tested now. Or you think you're gonna get tested now?
Well, she was mourning her daughter.
I
can take up a little bit of your time,
I guess I can see it. But even Nina should have been like, I think you should get tested. Like she wasn't a match. It was like, all right, maybe you could sit there and test. My point is that I felt like it should have came a lot sooner. And yeah, I can sit there and give Liesel a bit of a break because the whole um grieving thing. But even Nina's like, come on, boo, use your head. Sit there and say, hey, auntie, can you sit there and get tested or something like that? Like this last minute stuff just feels. I mean, I don't want to sit there and say for force, but
because honestly, the writers, I know they did on purpose to make sure that Nina was in the match and nobody else in Carl's family was match. But even when that happened, I was like, okay, if Nina's not the match and the baby's not the match, I was like, I know it has to be somebody from Nina's camp that would do. I never thought about Ulbrich myself either, to be honest, because Ulbrich is such a background character at this point, just like Sharon Newman. I was feeling that way watching Weiner the other day, but we're gonna get to Weiner in a little bit, and I'll
we are.
into that.
We definitely are,
because that's just not okay that I'm realizing it. But I didn't even think of Ulbrich, to be honest, but I was like, it has to be somebody in Nina's camp. And I forgot that Ulbrich was in Nina's camp until her and Carla were in the elevator. So I guess this is what's gonna broker the alleged peace between the two of them, between Willow and Nina. So we'll see.
Yeah, they definitely got a long road. I think about that in contrast to Sam and Alexis. Because I remember that when she came into town, they couldn't stand each other.
That was
Sam, exactly, and Sam was there trying to seduce Rick at the time, so like that was a whole mess. And now they're like, they're like this. So I think it's possible down the line.
Speaking of which, just a quick aside, what is the point of Sam and Dante looking for Maggie? Like, we've already know who Heather's, like, Esme's parents are. Like, why do we need to know about this Maggie thing? Is there a reason for this? Like, it just feels so
forced,
convoluted. Like, this is too much extension of the storyline here. Like, why do we care about Maggie anymore at this point? Like, I feel like the Esme stuff has already been concluded in its own way. Like, why do we care about Maggie? Or is Maggie the real mother? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's so I guess here's the thing. I feel like it's just giving Sam and Dante something to do. It's giving Sam and Dante something to do.
What do you think is the purpose of it though? Like, what do you think? What are your theories on the Maggie thing? Because I don't understand why we're being like that's literally the Nixon Falls bar. I know it's not GH. Every 5 months to use a set again. I noticed that. I'm not that. It's the budget. I got it. The budget.
What if? Okay, just a theory. What if this was? Because with GH, I feel like they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants when it comes to us writing. When Nathaniel Gray was in the chat maybe a couple weeks ago, he was saying that he got his script like 4 days before he starts shooting. And that's like, bro, you got these major talents and actors getting scripted like 4 days before they got to shoot. I feel like, what if this was like an accident? In some ways, because in some ways it's like you said, they already got the majority of the story kind of wrapped up. So what's the point of even doing this whole Maggie thing? What is Maggie going to sit there and bring to the table now that she's not the killer, obviously? So what's really the purpose of even bringing her in there?
Like if Maggie was brought on for when we were trying to figure out who Esme's mom was, and she was the one who knew, okay. But like we already wrapped it up, sis. So like, why do we need that old Nixon Falls bar and the Irish accents? Like, what is the reason for all this? Like what is the reason for all this? You know what I'm saying? That's the part I don't get. That's the part I don't get about that. And I guess you're right. Maybe it is to give Sam Dante something to do while Anna and Valentine are faking their deaths. It's just giving fake action movie with those two storylines of Sam and Dante and Valentine. Yeah, it's giving fake action. I'm not even interested in it.
Yeah, and just to answer your question to Havlin is because I'm using StreamYard, and for some odd reason it doesn't allow me to do polls and stuff like that. I don't think it does. I'm still trying to learn how to do it, so that's the reason why I didn't do a poll.
Quick thing. I agree with Gwen. Gwen said, I believe Heather is not Esme's mother. I agree, Gwen, because the only reason why they could be bringing in this whole Maggie thing. That's the only thing. Because other than that, it's like we're already done. This has been concluded, sis. So what is the point of this?
That's a really interesting. Now, what if Heather? If Maggie's the mother, where could they go with that? It's like that's a good theory, but like, where could they go with that?
maybe Maggie knows who the true mother is. Maybe the real mother is the one and only Felicia Scopio. I can't do Felicia's accent. It's like Midwestern, so I can't execute it right.
That was, I don't know what that
Yeah, that
was.
was terrible. Please strike that from the record, guys. Please strike that from the record. But maybe it's really Felicia.
Maybe. Now, I want to jump into Y&R. I want to jump into Y&R. I want to know your thoughts on this whole Nick and Seth. First of all, you've seen Y&R up until this point. What did you thought of that whole thing yesterday when it was pretty much a Sally episode? I want to know your thoughts on the whole Sally episode.
It reminded me first off of Guiding Light, because Guiding Light used to have this thing on Wednesdays where they're called Inside the Light, where the character would get their own standalone episode. And so it reminded me of that. And I actually, it made me interested in the Sally, Nick, and Adam whole salsa dance fandango that they had on. I finally became interested in it watching the episode. I thought it was actually pretty well executed. I know Sally's gonna lie either way. I can see that happening already. And I feel like, okay, so the thing about it is that got me the episode is when they first went over the scenario that if it was Adams, right? And then they, and I knew it was a dream sequence thing because everything was like in like a sepia blue kind of thing going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then when they zoomed back in, everything was back in color. And then she revealed it was Nick's. I was like, okay, well, maybe it really is Nick's. And then when Nick was talking to Sharon, like, yeah, it's not really love, but I'm here for the baby. And then Sal was like, oh, and I was like, oh, okay. Like at that point, I was thinking like that was the real scenario. And Sal realized, oh crap, I done messed up because like maybe I lied and said it was Nick's and it's not his, and he don't really care. He's just here with a baby, not really for me either. So, but I actually thought it was a good episode. One thing I'll point out is I noticed that Sharon has officially become a Roman Brady. She's been Roman Brady to Lauren Fenmore, which is pretty much when you take a big major character in a show and they've just become a background character now. And I noticed that with Sharon. She's like, she's having the baby, Mariah. Tess just called. They're having the baby. And then she goes to make coffee. And I was like, this is what they reduced her to? But anyways, go ahead. I'm not going to go on a tangent here. Go ahead.
No, First of all, okay, so I definitely had an opposite reaction when I first started watching the episode because I was just I was like, yeah. I was just like, wait, what? But then I sat there and I was like, I felt like it was a bold move because it was sort of like the Taraya and Tess episode. Remember when they did their whole episode that was just about them and it was a dream sequence? Because apparently you can actually have the same dream now for some odd reason. It was one of those things where it was very bold because it was like if you weren't a Sally fan, like if you weren't a fan of the storyline, then it was really no funny watching it.
Right. You would tune out.
So I felt like it was a very risky episode. But one of the things I do want to sit there and bring up, because I was watching James' video yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. He was talking about, right? Yeah, exactly. He was basically saying that they were pretty much kind of put in the background. All their stuff that's happening is very off screen, as opposed to front and center, which is this whole Adam and Nick and Sally stuff. Yeah. And I've joked with him this morning or this afternoon, or when I was talking to him, I was like, I felt like he wanted to say more. Like, you saw the video that I'm talking about, right?
No, I only saw the caption that James wrote. I didn't get a chance to click.
Oh, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it because it's like, me personally, I felt like I got this vibe. Like he wanted to say more. Like he was holding back
in the storyline. Yeah, James.
I felt exactly, and I felt, and I joked with him today. He was like, "Oh, Albert Smith, they're stirring up the pot or whatever." I was like, "No, I felt like you wanted to say more." Because when you stop to think about it, CBS is a very conservative sort of network. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they actually do have a romance or whatever, LGBT, whatever, it's still kind of shocking to me. But you have all this stuff that's going off background, like, Sharon Smith and talking about, oh, they're having a baby and stuff like that. I was like, well, why are we not seeing that stuff? We're seeing the whole Nick, Sally, and Adam stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, you understand where I'm coming from now, right? Like, it's just like, why are you putting this stuff in the background for? I mean, you already don't give them a story in general, and now a major part that's going on, and you having to go on off screen.
And see,
What
this is
does
the
that
thing.
say?
I knew this was gonna happen because when James did his whole Tarai video at the time, and everyone's like celebrating, "Oh my God, Tarai's getting married!" And I'm just like, I remember watching that video when James did live, and I was like, "This is the only celebration you guys are gonna get because you didn't get nothing else past this." Like, I know what time it is because CBS has always been a conservative network, right? And the thing about that is, even knowing that they've also been a very conservative network, like it was fine for the longest time with the viewers because we're in the 90s where most shows weren't doing diversity and inclusion. We weren't getting none of that most shows. However, now most shows are giving that to where now viewers are like, okay, YNR, what's your excuse? Like, what's going on now? And now they're realizing, okay, like this is not working for us. Like viewers are realizing this is not working for us no more. Like working for us in the 90s because everybody was on the same BS, right? Everybody was on the same type of time. But now we're in this present day, and that's not really going to work for us anymore now. And when Sharon came in on that standalone episode, it was like, oh my God, she's gonna have the baby. Like, I don't even know what the surrogate's name is or anything or nothing like that. And it's just it's no development. And I also realized in that moment, Sharon has officially become a background character, which is sad because I watched YNR 06 when she went off the cliff and with her little trench coat, her trench coat was flapping her face when she went off the cliff, you know, back in 06. I remember when Sharon was a great character, and it reminded me of when Lauren Fenmore, Michael Ballin's wife, she had her special episode. Lauren was that chick in the 90s on YNR, and now she's a background character. I remember in 06, which was the last little bit of meat they gave her until they background her character up. Like they just put her right in the background, they shoved her into the background. And this is what's going to happen with Taraya. But the sad thing is it's happened to Taraya sooner rather than later because most LGBT characters, they get like a little bit, a couple of storylines, and they get shoved into the background. But it seems like Taraya is getting shoved into the background from the start because Ali and Chanel got good storylines on Days. I was like, I remember watching it, the directing, the close up in the face, Ali crying on the sofa. I was like, this is how they should be writing for Taraya. But Taraya's not going to get it. They're not going to get it. You know, it's just, CBS is not that place to make that happen. And they won't make it happen. And personally for me, I don't have those kind of hopes for YNR BB. Like, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but if we're looking at the way Days tell storylines, and even at times GH, you know, and then look at how YNR and B&B YNR are telling the same storylines every single. There's nothing unique. There's nothing unique about that. So I'm just not surprised about the Tarai thing. I feel like, you know, this is CBS is going to die like this, and they're number one, and they're getting their international money, so they don't care what we think. If they were in the bottom like Days and GH, they would shape up quick.
Yeah,
shape up. Because Guiding Light did it, even though CBS is a conservative network. Guiding Light as World Turns did it. Why? Because they were in the bottom. So when you're in the bottom, you can't act like, you know, your stuff doesn't stink. But YNR and BB, unfortunately, they're top, so they can act like their stuff don't stink.
you're exactly right. It's just, you know, again, but it also comes down to it just being a conservative network. And I'm gonna use this as an example because I know. Well, I'm gonna use this example even though most people may not watch this show called Supergirl, right? So season one, this character named Alex Danvers is straight. Season two, they move her to the CW. Now she's a lesbian.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, wait, what? How did that happen from season one to season two? And then you just realize it's about the network. You know, it's literally about the network. Just I don't know where. Oh, yep. Now she's dating women. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, sure. It's just that's just how it is. So yeah. Like it was just really fun because I was watching this video last night and I was like, I felt like he had more to say, just like as far as just how unbelievably unfair, you know, CBS and just the way that they're telling the story with Mariah and Tessa. And right then and there, you know, Sharon's need to talk about all the stuff that's happening. And not even just stuff that is a critical moment that's happening for Mariah and Tess. And it's happening off screen. Like, are you kidding me? like I feel like that's just a slap in the face when you stop to think about it. You know?
It is, because the thing about it is, like I said, like YNR and B&B have the same storyline. Well, especially YNR. Every year in YNR, there's someone trying to take over Newman Media, or one of the Newmans is trying to take over someone's business. I swear to you guys, it's been like this since 2006. I think '06, they had the whole MVP thing where Jack was trying to take it over from the Newmans. Then the year after that, Victor was trying to take over the Jabot. Then the year after that, Victor and Jack and Jabot. And then Nick was trying to take over Dark Horse from Victor. It's the same thing repeated year after year. And I'm like, and now they're doing this whole Megasphere thing and Chance of Winners, and it's the same thing. It's just like it's rinse and repeat on YNR, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I've been watching YNR since '06. I see that pattern over and over and over again. And this is why, like I said, I'm just now they're trying to buy up Tucker McCall's company. They're always buying up someone's company every year on YNR, to where it just becomes monotonous at this point. And then on B&B, B&B is getting a little bit more unique. I'll give them that. They're getting a little more unique. They finally gotten out of the Brooke and Ridge thing, knock on wood. Let's hope it stays that way, because that's been going on for a minute. But YNR has been telling the same stories over and over, and I don't think they feel to need to course correct. Because like I said, GH and Days are at the bottom. And when you're at the bottom, even though GH is part of ABC, which ABC had more socially conscious storylines, Days didn't always have that. In fact, Days stayed away from those kind of subjects up until, I want to say, 2011, right? But then they realized they were dropping in the network, and you're right. It might be it could be a network thing because Passions was telling the stories, but Days wasn't. Which I also think it's also based on the writers and the audience of the show too. You know, the sponsors too. Sponsors. That's what I really think it is. Because Days was experimenting in 2011 with that, because it was we're at the bottom. We need to tell stories that people care about, that people actually connect to, and I guess for the international audience of YNR, this is what they're connecting to. I'm not always connecting to it, and some things still need some work, but you know.
Now, you saw today's episode, right? So you've been watching, and you know who is the father
I found out
of
from
the
the chat
baby.
today who the father. I did see two of the episodes of Sally's YNR, but I didn't see today's YNR. But I found out in the chat who the father is. So. Thanks, Gwen. I appreciate it. I'm just kidding, Gwen.
So I mean, here's the thing. I haven't really been watching this show that long. There's a lot of people that love Adam and can't stand compared to Nick. Compared to Nick,
Yeah,
I
we're
don't,
talking
I
about
don't, I don't, I don't, I don't see it. But there's a lot of people that feels like Adam is better for Sally, and Nick is boring, and Nick is just using Sally because Adam. It's just like like Adam is the better person for Sally as opposed to Nick.
Nick is
Um,
not.
and so what is your take on that?
I will say this: I knew that Adam was going to be the father. I just knew it because Nick already has too many kids. I was watching that Sally's episode. I was like, wait a minute, Nick already has like 4 kids. Like he got too many kids. I know they need to give Adam some kids. So it's gonna be Adam. It's like I just knew by process of elimination. But if you ask me, I still think Nick is a better guy, because even though in Sally's dream sequence or whatever, or both her dream sequences, Adam congratulated either way. You're gonna make a great mother. Look at how he treats Chelsea, who is the current mother of his child, right? That should give you an idea, sis, about how he can treat you. And that's just something I look at. But then look at how Nick treats Phyllis and Sharon. Granted, he wasn't a great husband to them, but as a co-parent, he's actually pretty decent to them. Way more decent than Adam was with Chelsea. We can admit that. A lot more decent, right? So for Sally to sit there and think that Adam was going to sit there and support. And then the crazy thing about it is that, like, seeing Victor in the dream sequence, he's like, you're making a big mistake, son, making a big mistake. All right? Making a big mistake. Son, don't be desperate now. Whatever, you're leaving because of a woman now. Huh? Don't be desperate. You're making a big mistake. It's like Victor's already butting in. And even though Adam and Nick won't let Victor butt in, Victor will be able to butt in more if Adam's a father than if Nick's a father. That's how I feel personally. Because Nick has established those clear boundaries with Victor. And Adam has too, but like, I see how Adam doesn't really protect Chelsea the way that he could. Even though he's attempted to, Victor's been able to get in there, right? But I feel like if Nick is a father, Victor won't be able to do that. Because Nick is not vying for Victor's approval like the way Adam is. And that's what I noticed. Adam and Victoria are so vying for Victor's approval. Nick could care less. Nick is like, you can go ahead and kill yourself. That has nothing to do with me. Right? That has nothing to do with me. Nick does not care about that stuff, but Victoria and Adam do. You know, they have such a, okay, let me not use that word. Yes, that sounds so wrong to say. But they just have this thing where they are just vying for daddy's approval in their 50s so hard that it's just disturbing to me at a certain point in time with both of them. Adam I can get because he didn't grow up with Victor. Victoria, I don't really understand so much. And Nick is just like, yeah, y'all do your thing. I'm good over here. Like the Newman checks are coming regardless, so I'm all right. You know? But that's my take on that. What's yours? What's your take?
Well, I mean, my whole thing is I haven't really watched the show that long, right? So I just see Nick more as much more stable and just much more supportive,
Which he is.
as opposed to Adam. You know, Adam well, first of all, just in a lot of scenes, there's just times where he just came across as very pretentious to me. So that's just always just throwing me off, you know. And like I said, I just feel like Nick is just much more supportive. You know, like Nick is still going to be there to some extent for Sally, even though that child isn't his. Now, if it was the reverse, I don't feel like Adam would actually be there for Sally. I don't feel like Adam would sit there and be there for Sally as much as Nick would. So that's just sit there and tell you something right there, you know. And it's you know, it's always funny when I'm sitting there talking about Nick and Adam and stuff like that in a live stream. You know, there's a lot of people that's in here that you know they're team Adam as opposed to team Nick, and I don't understand it. I don't question it. I don't question it, but it's just like it's one of those things where it's like I don't see it. You know,
I suggest they book all those people who are team Adam book an appointment with Dr. Collins, see his schedule. One thing I want to point out, I don't know if you know this, but Solomon Payne reminded me of something. Did you know that Heather Tom, who plays Katie on B&B, was the original Victoria on YNR? Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard.
And he made up a good point that he said that he thinks that if she played Victoria, that her Victoria would not have vied for Victor's approval. Because you know what's weird, when someone else is playing the role, it's almost like they bring a whole different personality in the person with them. You know what I'm saying? So,
they do, but you know, to sit there and say that they wouldn't be vying for their attention is based off the writing. This is something that's very important because, you know, let's just sit there and say we get back Tyler Christopher, right? You know, the people that had issues with Marcus' version of like they had issues with Marcus' version of Nicholas as though the writing was going to be so different from Tyler. Like he's not going to be making the same mistakes. He's not going to be sitting there sleeping with his son's girlfriend and stuff like that. He's not going to be doing those things. Like he's going to be written as a completely different character, and he doesn't have any say so over the script. So I don't understand that. You know?
Actually, I could see that what they're saying because I think the writers will write it differently because they're writing based off to see like if that actor could execute the scene. For example, like Michelle Stafford's Nina would not have that type of chemistry with, I think, Maurice Bernard, right? So that type of Nina that we're getting now probably would not have been written with Michelle Stafford. You see what I'm saying? If that kind of makes like I kind of see. Do you see that a little bit?
So you're saying that Michelle Stafford's version of Nina wouldn't be dating Sonny?
No, I don't think so because I don't think that I could see the chemistry between the two. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't know if they would have that same kind of like.
But do you think that they always sit there and write stuff for chemistry? You look at Michael and you looked at Willow, and there's a lot of people that sit there and say they don't have chemistry, yet they wrote them together.
In some ways, yes. I'm gonna tell you why. Because when Eileen Davidson comes on Days of Our Lives, her best friend is her Kristen's best friend is Jennifer Horton. But when Stacey Hyduck, who's currently playing Kristen, is on Days of Our Lives, her best friend is Lonnie Price. And I don't know if that has something to do with the chemistry, even in terms of friendship. You know, like that's something I noticed. So I don't know if you ever caught that, but I've been watching Days for a long time, so I caught that. So whenever Eileen Davidson comes on and she plays Kristen, her best friend is Jennifer Horton. Because Jennifer Horton is technically one of Kristen's best friends. But see, with this Kristen, we don't get that. Her best friend is Lonnie Price. So
That's interesting. I didn't think of it like that. I don't know. It's just I feel like it's you might have a point. You might have a point.
right?
I will softly agree to disagree because you might actually have a point, especially when you talk about the writers and the way that they write for the characters. So that's something I've never looked at because I've always sat there and watched it, and people will constantly complain about Marcus's version of Tyler of Nicholas, like, oh, he wouldn't be doing this, he wouldn't be doing that. I was like, you do realize he's not in the writing room writing for these people, but then you say playing to an actor's strengths, playing
Yeah,
to an actor's strengths. So that is definitely something to consider.
because another thing
I
too.
don't know how much of that though, especially with the chemistry, because again, people complain that certain people don't have chemistry, certain people do, and I can't imagine that they're just writing it for chemistry because a lot of the fans don't always see chemistry in certain people. But
Right. No, I was just gonna say like yeah, because the thing about it is that I think the writers would write it based on if they feel like the actor can execute that screen and if they're like even though they're an actor and they're acting, but can that show in their acting? Can that personality show in their acting? And then they're going to be writing based off of that. So because I feel like we see that dynamics a lot of the time with soap, especially like even uh, with recasts. Like okay, like to me, like I said, that's why sometimes you see a recast coming on a soap. One person may have a certain type of chemistry that the other person may not have as much. Which Nikisha made a comment in the chat. I gotta address about Adam being an underdog. I'm gonna get to Nikisha in a minute. I'm gonna get to her in a minute. That comment because Adam ain't no underdog. I'm gonna list some of his crimes in a minute. We're gonna get to them in a minute. But the thing about it is that like I said, like it's based on that chemistry. So I don't think Michelle Stafford could have executed that the same type of way. Like even when I think of the past Carlys, would they have had that same type of chemistry with Drew Kane? You know what I'm saying? Like with Drew. So, and then how would they have written Carly? Which I think Carly's been written somewhat consistently, I would say, somewhat, a little bit, somewhat consistently. But I do think they played to the actor's strength. Like for example, the previous Will, even though he was a recast, the previous Will was a recast, which you didn't see him, played by Guy Wilson. His Will was completely different than Chandler Massey's Will, completely different. His Will was a screw up, never did anything right, trying to get that next big break. But this Will is like a goody two shoes, a do right. Like it's just played so differently, completely differently. And like I said, you see those similarities in a lot of ways.
That's it's very interesting. You actually gave me a lot to think about as far as the writers and stuff like that, and how much pressure they must be under to sit there and write this scene right and be like, maybe this scene wouldn't work with Maurice Bernard and Michelle Stafford or whatever, as opposed to Cindy Watts.
And another example of that is Mike on GH, not Mike Sonny, but Mike Sonny's dad.
Yeah.
The original Mike, which you guys remember, the original Mike who used to own Kelly's. Yeah, do you remember the original Mike, guys? Who used to own Kelly's, used to be on Ryan's Hope back in the 80s too. That Mike would not, I don't know. Well, I can't say he couldn't have executed the Alzheimer's story. That part I can't say for sure. But I think about that, like his Mike was, I'm the dad that abandoned you, and listen, it was tough for me, and I tried the best I can. But this other Mike, like that we saw, the one that was recast with the Alzheimer's story, there was a vulnerability in this Mike. Right? There was a vulnerability that we didn't see with the last Mike, right? And sometimes I do feel like it could be based on someone's demeanor, right? Like this Sonny we have on Days, which just left. There's a vulnerability in him I didn't see with Freddie Wilson's Sonny. Freddie Wilson's Sonny was, I'm the goody two shoes, I do everything right. But this Sonny, he just had like a vulnerability like that I didn't see in the last Sonny. I didn't see it. So it was something very different. But really quick, just address the Keisha, where she said Adam was an underdog. This is my thing. Adam has what is Adam done? He's gaslighted Ashley, made her think that she made her lose her baby, gaslighted her. He gouged his eyes out to pretend he was blind. He literally put like some kind of poison thing in his eyes to pretend he was blind. He pretended to be gay to get out of criminal charges. So he did seduced. Okay, so the Newmans had a maid named Estella, and Estella's nephew, Rafe, was Adam's lawyer. So Adam pretended to kiss him to get out of charge. Listen, Adam's done a lot of stuff to keep track. I can hear this underdog argument here right now. I can't hear it. Go ahead, Albert. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It was very important for you to get that off your chest, so I'm glad you did.
Had to.
Now,
Okay.
going into days, you got three characters, well, two characters that left the show, three characters in general. Allie, Will, and Sunny, just gone. What do you think of that?
um, I felt like Allie still had some more story that they could have written for her. Personally, Will and Sunny, I kind of get it, but I feel like Will and Sunny, they should have done the thing where Sunny was falling for Leo. I felt like that's really where that should have gone, and then they didn't play up to that. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Um, I think because they feel like maybe Chandler can't do this full time or whatever it is, they can't tell that story the way they want to. But I feel like I would have been open to the Allie recast because I feel like Allie still had some story. I mean, Marlene's about to come back from the dead. Like, come on, you know what I'm saying? Like, so her has got to be around. And no phone call from Sammy yet?
Yeah.
No phone call for Sammy? Right, though? What is your take? What's your take?
It's funny about the no phone call from Sammy and stuff like that, because I did do a video about should they recast Sammy and stuff like that for the members and stuff.
Right.
So check that out. But I gotta sit there and shamelessly plug my little stuff. But just in general, now when it comes towards Will and Sunny, I feel like it's sort of situation with who's the woman that played Abby? What was her name? Marcy something.
Marcy Miller.
So she wanted to be recurring. She didn't want to sit there and do full time and stuff. And as far as the marriage is concerned, like when they were broken up or whatever, it made more sense for her to not be on as much. But like, boo, you and him, you know what I'm saying? Like your characters are married. You can't sit there and be doing that distance thing. Like, how is that going to work out?
Yeah.
So I can understand with the actor that plays Will, he doesn't want to be there full time. And so it's like, this isn't really going to work. And unfortunately, they're in a relationship and Sunny, is going to choose to leave or whatever. So it's like, they can't do that marriage at a distance. It's just not going to work. It's like either put him with Leo or do something with the characters, because it's just not going to work. Like storyline wise, marriage wise, it just is not going to work. And yeah, I do agree with you on the whole Allie thing. It definitely is much more story that they could have told. But I guess in some ways, because I got so used to Allie, it's hard for me to picture them just recasting her. It's better for their, maybe she, for whatever reason, she wanted to leave the show. She can come back later on, do a Victoria, whatever, and just, make it work. I'll be cool with that.
The thing about it is that I think for some reason I get this feeling that the writers were scared to break up Wilson, as they call him, Sonny and Will. I feel like the writers were scared to do it for some reason. They were scared. And James posted a video. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but it was talking about like modern day super couples, which to me, I consider Sonny and Will a modern super couple next to like Sierra and Ben and like
Allie,
for days.
I was gonna say what, like Anna and Valentine or something like that.
I wouldn't consider Anna Valentine a super couple. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far with those two. Even though I guess they would qualify for super couple status. Well, I mean, even Spencer and Trina, to me, I could see them as somewhat of a super couple over time. But Valentine and Anna don't have that zhuzh for me. They don't have that oomph. But for Sonny and Will, I think the writers were afraid to break them up, though. That's why I think it was. But I would have liked them to do that, where maybe Sonny was caught in Leo, and Will found them, and then he left. And I don't know. I feel like they should have gone that route, but okay, they don't want to, so
Yeah. Now, what do you think about the whole? All right. So what do you think about this whole heaven scene? Because there was one point where Kate was like, well, thank you for your sacrifice, and, really, really appreciate it. And Kate was like, Kayla was like, I don't know. Somehow I just found that really funny that Marlena decided to sacrifice herself for those two. Kate was like, well, yeah, I appreciate that. And I was like, wow, Kate, really? I was like, really, bro? But of course, I'm loving that whole stuff. What are you thinking about that so far? And what do you think about the reveal?
So when it came to the reveal was great. Now before I get to that, the heaven thing, okay, so you know me, I'm always relating one storyline to another. I feel like Carvalhotti low-key copied this from One Life to Live because he wrote this same thing for Vicky on One Life to Live in 2008. This is very similar stuff when Vicky went to heaven in 08. He was writing for One Life to Live at that time. Granted, it was kind of like a revisiting of a past storyline because Vicky went to heaven in 1972 on One Life to Live in like 1980s, and then she went to heaven again in 2008 on One Life to Live. But during 2008, Carvalhotti was writing for that time, right? So I couldn't help but think that was an influence for this, right? It felt very familiar, the little white sheets and stuff. You know, I like the sets. The set was very similar, which I appreciated it. I thought the heaven stuff was actually pretty good. But the thing is, I always knew they weren't dead. I figured they were under some mind control or something that is looping them all in the same fantasy or something. You know, this is Days, so Days gives you some room to imagine some things that's possible. This would never happen to Wine Iron. This is why Wine Iron is not interesting. Same stuff crap every year. But see, that's what I appreciate about Days, that they keep us guessing. And when I saw them in the Demerit Enterprises tubes, I was like, oh, Megan Hathaway is on her way. She's on her way. She's on her way home. The last time we saw was Demerit Enterprise tubes. Bo Brady was in it. And to me, that was actually a pretty bomb reveal. And on a Monday, they treated us to that on a Monday.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate that. Like, I appreciate you. I really appreciate that. But I thought it was a good storyline. I thought it was really well written out. And we'll get to revisit the characters' histories. And it's interesting because Allie and Johnny pretty much lost all three of their grandmothers, right? Well, both of their grandmothers and then their Aunt Kayla, right? At the same time. So I thought it was actually pretty good. What was your take on it?
I loved it. I loved it. What's good, Samuel? I loved it. Here's my whole thing. I knew that they were never gonna die. Like those actors, all three of them, they've been on the show for like decades, like years. They're not gonna sit there and kill them off. So I was like wondering the whole time was like how they're gonna find a way to bring them back. How are they gonna find a way to bring them back? And then when I saw the reveal, I was like, oh yeah, because they weren't really dead. So that's how they're gonna sit there and do it. I knew they were gonna do it in some sort of way. I guess this is probably going to be the best way they could sit there and do it, especially the whole, oh, that's not really their bodies, that's not really their ashes and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, all right, well, that's, glad we, because I just knew that they were going to die, like they weren't going to sit there and kill them off. So it was, for me, it was more about how they're going to bring them back rather than, oh man, like, they're going to be just dead.
Which I think this is like, so I'm guessing Megan, my theory is Megan is the one who stole the orchid, Megan Hathaway, Stefano's other daughter. And I'm like, finally, the Damaris can have a real patriarch, finally. Now, what would have been really boss if they could have maybe had a takeover of Demerit Enterprises, and then it's revealed that it's Megan, and then she's also behind the tubes. That would have been epic boss. When you have soaps and have a storyline where there's one person, mysterious character, or someone from the past coming in, they're responsible.
They can still do that though.
They could.
They can still do that.
They could. That would just be epic if they could do something like that. And I want them to explain how Megan survived from that battery acid back in the 70s. They're going to need to get good information about that, how she survived that. I mean, obviously Dr. Rolf, but I mean, honestly, to me, I thought that was it's a very good segue to bring her in because we've been so long without Beyond Salem and the whole her and the Bo and the tubes. If they would just bring Megan on right now with Bo and Hope, it would seem so random. We have to be introduced and they have to be connected to what's currently going on screen. So I thought that was a good touch from the writers. It was a good touch.
Yeah, they're going to be bringing back, well, I mean, we already know they're going to be bringing back Ciara and stuff like that. Now, they're probably not going to sit there and do the Ben because, they just
Ben's not
can't
her cousin. Yeah, Ben's not her. Well, Alex is not her cousin.
Oh, it's not? Oh, it's not her cousin, or it is her cousin?
No, so if Ciara comes back, Alex Kyriakis is her cousin because Alex and Ciara are cousins based through the Kyriakis.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay.
Which is interesting. Let's see how that plays out.
Yeah. I feel like the whole town is practically like cousins at this point to some extent. I remember when I first started watching it and Gwen was like, everyone is pretty much everyone else's family. And I'm just looking at that tree like, she's not really that wrong.
She's not.
She's Sunny's cousin. She's Trip's cousin. She's Stephanie's cousin. She's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say she's related to Hope, but no, she's not. She's not related to Jennifer, so no. So never mind. Scratch that.
Yeah, and also you do have Bo and Hope coming back at some point too.
Which I'm looking forward to this. I've never been excited about Bo and Hope before, but for the first time, I kind of am. I'm kind of excited about Bo and Hope. I'm kind of excited about it. How do you feel about that? Even though I know you were only really introduced to them through Beyond Salem.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do. I'm interested in see what they're going to bring to the show. This is one of those things where it's like I wish that GH would take notes. You have characters that leave, you have other characters that come in, and you bring something into the table for a little bit. They're there for a while, then they leave, then they bring room for more people, but you see them consistently. See, that's the thing when you think about Austin, and now this whole, Ava and helping him hide the body and stuff like that. To me, it's kind of interesting. The problem with it is that we'll get this stuff for a while, and then we won't see them for like another 3 weeks or something. Like, in the previews, they're going to be showing what's his name, Sasha. See, I almost forget these people's names, Sasha and Cody and stuff like that. We haven't seen them in weeks. It felt like I haven't seen those characters in
forgot about
weeks.
Cody actually for a second until you mentioned him just now.
It took me a hot minute to sit there and remember his name. That's why I was like, what's his name? He has a beard. What is his name? But again, we haven't seen them for like 3 weeks. So
I'm praying GH gets us together by the 60th. I'm just praying. I'm praying to get it together by the 60th. But go ahead.
let's say this is exactly why I always, exactly why I made that title before. Like, if GH went to Hulu, would you still watch? Would you still watch? Now we got Hulu, so it's not really, what I'm saying? Like, it's not really like a question for us, but like, I don't know if people will still watch it.
But
I
the
don't
thing
think
is
they
that
watch it.
like even if they were on Hulu, they still have the same writers. So I understand there's certain things that we would not see on network, but like would the writing change that drastically? Do you see what I'm saying? It's still the same writers, just got the same budget.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even with Days, they knew how to do it better than GH when they were on network television.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just that's the thing that always like really blows me a lot of times, that as much as I love Days, I do, and I love the characters. I do love the characters of GH more.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we don't see them as much because we got too many. Point blank period. We have too many characters on that show.
Because I'm not really as mesmerized by the characters of GH anymore than as opposed to Days, because the characters on Days, it's like Days is giving me everything. It's just it's checking all the boxes. We got a supernatural storyline. We got a brother poisoning his brother. We've got three women in supposed heaven or limbo or really now they're in mind control. We got a whole patriarch getting ready to come back. Matriarch, excuse me, a matriarch coming getting ready to come back.
Get it right. Get it right.
Right. And I'm like, finally, Demira's gonna have a real patriarch. I'm getting everything on Days. We got representation. We got it all. And then GH is just like, oh, okay. All right. Valentine Anna sending like little like cassette tapes players to what is it, the deputy mayor. I'm like, all right. Like,
yeah.
And it's like, why do I care that she's being ghosted? Anyways.
That and I, yeah, no, I definitely can see that. And for me, it's not even so much that I don't like the Days characters, because I really do. I really like all the characters. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I grew up watching GH longer, and I'm just, it's just more familiar with me, that I just really love the characters. And it always just bothers me that it's like Days is doing it better, and this is what I'm saying, this is what we get. What's funny? What's funny? I want
Samuel's comment about Kyle Louder just made me laugh in the chat. But anyways, the thing about Days, the reason why I like it so much is because it reminds me of One Life to Live. One Life to Live had all these elements I saw in Days. You had the archetype of Todd Manning or EJ, as we're seeing here. We had the Dr. Ralph or the Carlo Hester on One Life to Live. We had these different characters on there. And right now, even Orpheus, who's giving Helena Castine with his mind games, it's a little getting on my nerves. So I want to ride it lightly because I'm a little old, the mind games with Orpheus. But like even with Sloane, her not giving up her client, which was smart. And I was glad she put her foot down with Brady because at the end of the day, Lee Shin was paying her bills, not Brady Black. And at the end of the day, she's not going to sacrifice her career for a man. That's why I respect Sloane. Even though she's kind of vengeful and wicked, like she knows to respect herself. And she knows she's not going to put nothing on the line for no man. I'm like, I'm proud of you, Sloane.
Exactly. I will give her that. I will 100% give her that.
I see her on that. And the thing about it is like Days has a way of writing for its characters where I'm really interested. Even the new triumphant trio on Days, which is Gwen, Xander, and Leah. I'm like, I can't wait to see how that plays out, with them running the Spectator. So it gives me something to look forward to where on GH, I'm not finding that. And I think it's because of GH, it's just such a lack of consistency. I think GH maybe, like I said, if they had a chance to be consistent, it would be a lot better.
Now, just on a side note, which show did you start watching first, Days or GH?
GH was first. GH was first. But Days captivated me. And I think what captivated me Days, I'm trying to remember the first episode I watched of Days. It was Sammy in the church. And she was with Celeste, who was Lexi's mom and Theo's grandmother. And then Lexi and Celeste had her little, I guess I didn't know Celeste had a New Orleans accent. I thought it was British the whole time. My bad. Anyways, Sam was in the church. She's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What if EJ's the father of these twins? And then Celeste goes, Samantha, there's only one way to deal with Elvis Demera. And she's like, okay, what do I do? You kill him. And I was like, dun, 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 dun. And it goes, on the next days of our lives. She's like, you don't just run away from Elvis. There's only one way to deal with him. And she goes, what do I do, Celeste? She goes, you kill him.
In a very soapy way, yes.
In a very soapy way. And Celeste, every time she would around Sammy, she's like, Samantha. She always say Samantha. She always say her full name, Samantha. She's like, you only one way to deal with Elvis Jr. You kill him. There's like one way to deal with the bear. Like Days had that, like that, this supernatural, very soapy element to it that captivated me. And then GH had its own thing with the shootout. So each soap was bringing something.
Yeah. They kind of play to their strengths to a large degree. I definitely get that.
I'm almost wondering if GH should go back to that almost because maybe that's what's hurting them. But anyways, go ahead.
No, it's funny too because I don't think that you're entirely wrong about that. Now you watched. Well, you caught up with YNR, Days, and GH except for that. What about B&B?
So this is something that was on my mind about B&B that I got to get off the table because I saw Sheila's granddaughter on YNR this week, and I was like, wow, Sheila's granddaughter is on YNR.
Yep.
Right? Because Daniel's daughter Lucy is Sheila's granddaughter. Right? And that clicked with me because Lucy's biological mother is Daisy, who is one of Sheila Carter's twins. Because Sheila has like 10,000 kids at this point. And one of them is twins, right? It was Daisy and Ryder. And so Daisy's the biological mom of Lucy, which means Lucy is Sheila Carter's granddaughter. Interesting tidbit. I wonder if has anybody thought about that in the chat? I'm just curious about the chat ever thought about that. Have you thought about that, Albert?
No, well, I didn't really watch B&B as long, so.
So it made me think about that, but I haven't even watched B&B yet. So you're gonna have to enlighten me here. So what's going on? I have yet to see. I've seen it. I haven't seen it yet.
When was the last time you watched B&B?
Was when Thomas decided that he wanted to go with Steffi. He wanted to live with Steffi.
Oh, okay. Now what you thought about that though?
I thought it was actually good because honestly, I do think Steffi's actually the better parent. I feel like with Hope, I don't like how she wants to keep Douglas away from Thomas. That is his son. I'm not saying Hope is not the mom at all, but it's like, that kind of bothers me. And Liam is just this yes man for Hope on everything, which always bothers me. But I actually was okay. Let's see where the storyline goes. Douglas reminds me of what is his name? God, what is his name? His name was Will on Guiding Light. I don't know if you guys remember. It was Will on Guiding Light. He was like 7 years old, and he was just a sweet kid, and he pushed Edmund off the staircase. This is the kind of vibes Douglas is giving me. I feel like Douglas is about to give us some vibes down the line. I could feel something happening with Douglas. I feel something's happening. What was your take on it?
What do you mean? What was that movie? You mean more like The Good Son? I don't know if you ever saw that movie with Macaulay Culkin and that other guy or that other kid.
No, I have not seen it. I have not seen it.
Okay. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was definitely a twist that I didn't see coming, so I appreciated that. Um, but then like after that, it started to go kind of downhill. Like Hope literally just kept whining. It just kept recycling the same lines over and over again,
Yeah.
and like her scenes just became intolerable. Um, I think yesterday, Steffi and Thomas, like they got into it. And, Taylor Smithy trying to bridge the gap and everything like that. Like, come on, where's the love at? And there's one point, like, here's the thing about Steffi, the actress that plays her. She has some very iconic expression, like facial expression. So it's like, if you ever got a chance to watch like yesterday's episode, like there's one point where Thomas says something smart and the look on Steffi's face, it's one of those things where it's like you gotta watch it, but it is hilarious. Um, Other than that, you haven't really been missing much on B&B.
Yes, that's the thing.
Or
That's
so
why
that's
B&B
you
was
really haven't been missing much on B&B, which
that's
is
why it was
why I
last
kind
on
of
my list. That's why it was
yeah,
last
that's why
on my list to watch.
that's also why I put it last too, because like you didn't really miss much. You really didn't.
Yeah, because and that's what I'm saying. That's why it's last on my list because I know there's not nothing I'm going to be actually really missing in terms of storyline. Gwen made a comment in the chat where she said she loved it when Stephanie was on. I did too. Stephanie was the most iconic character, most iconic soap characters to date, and she made the Bold and Beautiful what it was. But the only thing is, like with any soap, you got to be able to have other characters to bring that same kind of steam, and I don't know if that's happened as of yet. With B&B. We're still trying to vie for it, but I haven't seen it. But B&B, I knew I wasn't missing anything. I knew, and that's the thing. Like I said, with B&B and YNR, they tell the same stories. YNR is a little bit different. There's some unique storylines that I see on YNR. Well, not unique, but a little bit different. Whereas B&B, I don't see that. But YNR has been giving us more depth lately, in my opinion, with Daniel and the whole I want to be a better father and I want to do this for Heather and Lucy. I felt that kind of depth on YNR. I felt that. I felt those storylines. Go ahead.
Now, okay, because I definitely had a different reaction to that whole Daniel thing. Like Daniel's idea of getting back his family is by basically creating a video game. Really? That's your big plan is to sit there and get like what a Zelda ripoff and be like, hey, listen, I changed and stuff like that. And see, I said this in my live stream a couple of maybe weeks ago or days ago, or whatever, right? A lot of this stuff is being told off screen. So the issues that Daniel and his family have with him, we're rooting for Daniel now, right? And the same with Lucy and Daniel, and Lucy really being affected by Daniel's actions. As the audience, most of us were rooting for Daniel, right? Well, a lot of this stuff happened off screen. So, like my whole thing is like, what if we saw Daniel like really get angry at Lucy, or really was being really mean and nasty and cruel to like Heather and stuff like that? Will we really be so much, will we really be rooting for him? Or if we saw just how destructive he was towards his own family? Because we're coming in this towards the aftermath of everything. So, you know what I'm saying?
I think it's possible because we rooted for Todd Manning for the longest, didn't we? You didn't see that one coming, did you?
That's a good one. That is this is the reason why I love my job and why I love working with DC.
We
I
rooted
still
for
do
Todd
think
Manning
that
for the longest, didn't we?
that is a very good point. That is a very good point. Um, I don't know. You know what it was? I guess it's like the scene, because we're watching the whole scene with Lucy and stuff like that. And for the most part, she's looking at her phone. And we're like, come on, just put down the phone, listen to what your dad has to say. He's really snipped this thing, like he's trying, he's pouring his heart out and everything like that.
Yeah, I
But
want to.
again,
He should have snapped. He should have snapped in that scene. Like, damn it, Lucy. I was waiting for something like that. Like, the breaking the glass. Damn it, Lucy. But they didn't do that for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know.
but no, I mean that's a very good point. And again, first of all, what was you laughing at before? I want to know the joke.
Okay, so the thing I was laughing at prior was that Samuel put in the chat that let me read the exact comment that he wrote. He said that Y&R needs poor characters who are striving to be rich. There are two-way rich people at Y&R, and that's why I laughed at, because it was so true. A lot of the characters in Y&R really don't have no struggles. We're not talking financial, but just in general, they're not really striving for anything like we see in the other shows. But that's what I was laughing at. But go ahead.
Oh, okay, no, I just wanted to, because I was like, I want to hear the joke. And I knew it was by either like Samuel and Akeisha or somebody, so I was very curious about that. But that is a very good comparison with Todd.
It is.
But I guess for me, I was just like, we're rooting for Daniel, and we don't know how much of a monster he was being towards Lucy. For all we know, he could have been even worse than Todd. He could have even been worse than Todd, you know? So it's just one of those things where it's like this is the thing about Y&R when they start doing a lot of this stuff off screen. I get they want to sit there and save money and stuff like that, but even this whole Tessa Mariah
I
stuff,
say, buddy.
exactly. But it's one of those things where it's like you're missing out on critical points because you're doing all this stuff off screen. So it's like it makes me not care even less. I mean, granted, I wasn't caring about Mariah and Tess before, but it's making me care even less because why should we? You're not giving us the stuff that would make me want to be more invested in these characters.
And this is the thing too, is that I would like to see soaps not be afraid to write characters multidimensional. And what I mean by that is it's okay for a character to have an outburst once in a while. And I want to be very mindful of what I'm saying here, right? Because you know how you just mentioned about with Daniel, we'd still be rooting for him if we knew what kind of a monster he was. And I just literally mentioned the same breath, but we were rooting for Todd Manning for the longest time, right? What people watch With Life to Live. And my whole thing is that if he had that scene where if he's at the table and he goes, damn it, Lucy, I'm talking to you, or something like that, right? And let me just be clear. I feel like soaps, it's okay to write characters as multidimensional beings, right? Because parents do lose their cool, right? Maybe not to the point of it being violent or anything, but it's okay to see these type of instances where we're seeing these different complexities in these characters. And I feel like soaps are very afraid to write for characters like that, as they once did in the past. Like when Sonny said to Michael, it was just a scene back on GH a couple months ago. He's like, all right, you know what? Next time, I'm not going to ask you again. Next time, I'll make you beg for it. And I was like, ooh, ooh. Like it was just a good scene. I was like, that was good writing. Whoever wrote that day, 10 stars.
Whoever wrote that day, that specific day, yeah.
That specific day, I was like 10 stars because Sonny has always been this person of pacifying his children, but the one time we see him snap, and that happens with parents. They have a snap. It doesn't mean they hate their children, and you don't have to. Because the thing is, you can have those little bitty moments in there, right? That's one thing I will give about GH's writing, that we're seeing those kind of edges in the characters show up without them having to go have that moment and then go all the way evil. Like they can just have that moment and still be who they are because that's part of who the character is. And so when Samuel wrote that comment, I laughed because I thought about that. And what you said with the whole, if he was doing that, would we still be rooting for him? And I made the Todd Manning comparison because Y&R doesn't really have characters who strive for anything at all. We see that on GH where, okay, well, you can say that Victoria and Adam are striving for their father's love, but I mean like some real struggle. I mean, that's a struggle, but a struggle that we could kind of relate to because there isn't a lot of relatable, in my opinion, a lot of relatable characters in Y&R or even B&B, right? And I'm not even saying that they have to live the way we do or anything like that, but there's just not a lot of, relatability on those shows. And I think that's what it's lacking. And it's funny that Samuel says that because there was a writer Jean Passante, I think it was, who used to write for As the World Turns, she literally said that in an article, I think it was in 2012 on Soap Opera Digest, that the problem with YNR is that everyone is rich. Like nobody's working towards anything. And that is true. There's no development. When a character doesn't have a really true struggle, there's no development that can take place. That can be shaped out of that. YNR had that in the beginning with Victor, right? When Victor had to confront his father, his father was a monk or something, and it's like his father's name was Albert, right? So he was like this monk. Yeah. Victor's father. That was cute. But we don't see the development in the characters. Even Devon now, he's a billionaire, right? He's like a billionaire. Everything's handed to almost everybody. So that development's not there. So yeah.
And that's the thing. Even when like Adam decided to quit Jabot, it's like, bro, you're rich. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like seriously, like you're rich. You made it seem like, well, I guess I gotta sit there and start going towards the one ads and going on an unemployment line. It's like, no, you just get to sit at home and do nothing all day or do stuff. Like who cares? It's definitely an issue.
And you've seen that on days when Leo was trying to look for a job, or I'm trying to think if there's ever an instance of that on GH or Esme, when she's like, okay, how am I take care of this baby? I have nobody else. Like you see these elements, or even a better example on GH. I don't know if you guys remember the character of Rafe, who was Silas Clay's nephew, and he was dating Molly. He was in Triangle Molly and TJ at one point. I don't know if you guys remember this. It's back in 2012.
I remember a little bit of it. But
this is the Life to Live era on GH, as we call it. And he came on, and Molly found him sitting on he was homeless, sitting on a bench, and Molly gave him a sandwich, right? And they kind of like, that's how their love story kind of got rekindled or whatever. They kind of, ooh, you need a sandwich? I'm here for you. And all this stuff happened with the two of them. But it was the development of the characters. Like I said, we just don't see that on YNR. On GH. But I did like how when Christine came out of Devon's apartment and Nate was like, hey, Christine, why are you here? Is it professional or personal? And she's like, have a nice day, Nate. In other words, mind your business. So yeah.
Very, very interesting. But yeah, I can totally see that. And I think also what you were saying before we kind of wrap this up a little bit is that this is why you like a lot of the South African like shows or whatever. Specifically, like there's characters that are teachers and stuff like that, and you just don't. It's much more grounded. It's much more relatable. I mean, I can definitely see the issue as far as YNR. YNR does have good stories at times. They can pull off some good stuff whenever they feel like they're in a good mood or whatever. But there's definitely issues, and that is definitely one of the biggest. Is that if not among up one problems that I would sit there and say.
Yeah, because everyone on days, even they have a different job. You have someone running a bar, Demare Enterprises.
They're running a bakery.
What was it? Doctors, like the Will and Gwen being journalists. Well, Gwen is sort of a journalist. Like everyone has like something different going on days that makes you feel like you can connect. Eric being a photographer and a priest, like you don't get that. You don't get that.
It's much more of a grounded show than YNR.
Yeah.
But I also feel like maybe in a lot of ways it's also because YNR I've always known to be written for a much older crowd. So maybe they just like that stuff. Because when you stop to think about it, like you were Smith there saying before, the Newmans are taking over this company or taking over that company. It's always like business. And it's just like, bro, really? Like
is this tired of that? They have enough money. Like, what is the reason for this?
But then you realize that, again, it's written for older people. Maybe an older generation, they like that stuff.
Right.
I think that's just what it really comes down to. But I think we kind of covered all of the soaps. If I didn't actually, yeah, we pretty much. I mean, B&B was actually short because not a damn thing actually happened on B&B. But I think we kind of really covered everything else. So I'm gonna sit there and just kind of get the floor to you, DC, as far as what you want to say before we head on out.
Oh, geez. Well,
No
what I
pressure,
would
bro.
say, what was that?
I said no pressure.
No pressure, right? You just put me right on the spot. Jeez, I'm gonna right on the spot. I gotta get my press statement. Um, Honestly, I think we covered pretty much all the soaps cumulatively. I would say, but that's my biggest thing. Just to reiterate that further, I want to see the soaps get more development, and that is why I like the South African soaps, and that's because the South African soaps, believe it or not, reminds me of One Life to Live. Right? They remind me of the elements of One Life to Live that One Life to Live had, and Days is the only other soap giving that element. GH can, but GH is just too choppy for it to be organized enough. But GH has it, but it's just too choppy, right? And then YNR and B&B is not going to give it. But I just want to see soaps tell more of those real stories that I can really connect to. Because my thing is, if you want to draw in a newer audience, which I guess YNR and B&B don't have to worry about that really, but I guess this is more speaking to GH probably. I guess at this point, right? This is what they're going to need. We're going to need storylines we can connect to. Um, in a way, as controversial as this would have been, I wish the soaps would have done a storyline about, you know, a virus coming to town and a vaccine coming virus. And then half the town wants to take a half town. I don't know. I would have liked something like that. I don't know. That would have been maybe too crazy for today. Maybe that's best they didn't do it. Okay, maybe it's best they didn't do something like that. But I know this is like the early 2000s. They would have. And
I think they just. I think what you want to say is it's more just like they need to be more daring with what they do.
they do.
And it's funny too because what you said as far as like maybe they need to go back to the whole shootouts and mobster stuff or whatever. I know there's people in the chat that they didn't really like it and stuff like that. And this is the reason why I was saying yesterday that is Jason really necessary to come back because Sonny doesn't really do a lot of mob stuff anymore. I mean, yeah, granted he has the whole pikeman group or whatever, but in reality, it's like you know. I feel like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they need they. I don't. Here's the thing. I don't know if they need to exactly go back to the shootouts, but I think the problems that I've always talked about is the same ones. You have too many characters, and it leads to too much filler, with certain characters just being there just to be there.
Yeah.
And I think they need to sit there and take it more. They need to sit there and take some notes from Days, to be honest. Because somebody even in the chat, I think you might have said it. Um, I think they have around the same amount of cast. They might have around the same amount of cast, but they utilize them so much better. You know,
But see,
like
the thing is with. Oh, go
no, I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna sit there and say there was one episode where there was one scene was like Roman, Steve, and who was the
John.
other three? John. Yeah. And then there was another scene with like the heaven stuff, and then that was just pretty much about it. And it's like you have two scenes, but you can focus on them and follow them, and you're getting so much more out of them if you didn't sit there and have about 10 to 12 something people on there. Now, what was you
Right.
gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that, like, the things with GH is that obviously nobody's on contract, and that's part of why we get the shuffling revolving doors. And on days that most of the people are, and so that's why we get more stable, consistent storylines that are there. And like I said, I just to me, Days just knows, like, we got the heaven stuff, like you said, we got John, we got Alan and Chanel, we like, even though it was kind of some of it was wacky and cartoonish, I really didn't know how anything was gonna play out. I really couldn't tell. Nothing felt predictable for me, right? Honestly, I wouldn't even have predicted Ali was going to leave until I learned from one of your lives. So, right, I was the only thing. That was the only way I knew. But even like the heaven, I knew they were alive. I didn't know how they were going to be alive, right? So even though Days has some elements, I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be predictable. So yeah, you're going to know this is going to happen, but you know how this is going to happen exactly, right? So we know that they were out there going to be alive, but how they're going to be alive is what we didn't know. That was a twist. And I like that Days plays on that. Like, yeah, you're expecting this to happen, but you don't know how this is going to happen, though. You know what I'm saying? Like the details, so like the inner workings of it. And that part I can appreciate about them as a soap. Whereas GH, the thing is, when they had shootouts on GH, it had more depth during those storylines. It had more depth, which is what we're not seeing now. So they don't need shootouts per se, but they do need more depth. That much I would say.
Yes, I will agree on that. I will agree on that. Now, before I do go, before we do sit there and wrap things up, um, weekends for the members, I got some very interesting news. I will sit there and leave it at that. So for the members throughout the weekend, definitely gonna give you some updates. I will sit there and talk to you, DC, after the chat. But definitely got some exciting updates. I will sit there and say. So as my buddy James always says, stay tuned. Stay tuned. But I do want to thank everyone for joining. This was so much fun. It's always great to have the one and only DC in the chat. So thank you for joining. I want to thank everyone for coming in tonight. I know, I'm always giving everyone my undivided attention, or at least as much as I can. So I just appreciate everyone just being here and just kind of, listening and kind of chopping it up among yourselves. And I also just want to sit there and say thank you for your support. This ride, I don't think it'd be possible without everyone here. And I truly do mean that. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, we will see you.
Oh wait, you haven't announced
it. No.
You haven't announced it yet. Never mind. I almost give a spoiler.
Yeah, no. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. It's just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes. So definitely look forward to giving everyone an update about that. And yes, hit the like button. It really does help because, as you saw for the last couple of weeks, you never know who's going to be in the live stream. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you so much. Oh my God, you are amazing. Thank you, my rock star. And thank you, everyone, for just being amazing. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you again, Jonathan, for the super chat. And we will both see you in the next live stream.
See you guys in the next one.
Later.